Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. The news today is grim. I want to speak first about Ukraine. As I indicated to you yesterday, the President of the United States is blaming the Ukrainians for the war that has raged for 3 years between Ukraine and Russia. Let me be clear. Let there be no ambiguity. Russia was responsible for the war. And everybody understands it, and everybody knows it, and certainly the Republicans in Congress understand it. The time has come for the Republicans to stand up and repudiate what the President of the United States has said. There can be no doubt that what is happening at this moment, dealing with Ukraine, is a national crisis. Now wait, let me go further. For the President of the United States to insist that Vladimir Zelensky is a dictator is nothing less than absurd. The dictator is Vladimir Putin. The person who Donald Trump is cozying up to is Vladimir Putin. And it is Zelensky and the valiant people of Ukraine who are fighting against what we now know as, a war caused by Russia. And there is more that needs to be understood. Our allies are up in arms. They are asking a simple question. How can the President of the United States make such an absurd statement? That's the question. And let me tell you, and I say this respectfully, but forcefully, a President of the United States who would utter such absolute nonsense has no business being President of the United States. Can you imagine if Donald Trump had said this during the presidential campaign? I don't believe he would have won. And I want to go even further. Donald Trump misstates how much money has been spent on the war. And he doesn't even seem to understand that the money we have given has come right back to us through the purchase by Ukraine of armaments. We are at an impasse when it comes to what to do about the war in Ukraine. And the impasse has simply to do with the incompetence of Donald Trump's administration. And that includes the vice president, that includes the Secretary of Defense. And I'm waiting for Marco Rubio, who has been a great defender of Ukraine, to stand up and just say something. By the way, we have had secretaries of state who have resigned in protest over a president's policy. Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan resigned in 1915. And I would remind you that Cyrus Vance resigned in 1980 as Secretary of State to Jimmy Carter. We have seen secretaries of state who stood up with courage and conviction. Where is Marco Rubio? Now I want to go a little bit further. Where in the name of heaven is the Republican Party? Don't they understand that if they don't stand up now, we are in deep trouble? And speaking of standing up, even as I speak, the United States government, the Senate, is moving toward a vote on Kash Patel to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have in front of me his book, Government Gangsters: The Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. Kash Patel is totally unfit to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Can you imagine a man who believes in the deep state? I've read his book. Every member of the Senate should have read his book before they voted to confirm him. Now, I understand very clearly that Donald Trump is putting loyalists in control, but I also understand something else. That when you have the FBI, one of the most trusted intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies in the world, under the control of a man who believes that the FBI is controlled by the deep state, a man who in his book makes clear his loyalty to Donald Trump, a man who is pledged clearly and precisely to do what Donald Trump wants. My dear friends, this is a disaster. I have received innumerable calls from so many of you, and emails and texts from people who ask me the blunt question, What can we do? And the answer is, we must let the Republicans know that when push comes to shove, they will be held accountable. I am speaking now of cabinet nominees like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., like Tulsi Gabbard, like Pete Hegseth, and we can go down the list of people who now serve in the cabinet of the President of the United States, who administer the affairs of our government. And they, my friends, well, this is the most unfit cabinet I have seen in all of American political history. And essentially, people say to me, well, we got to hold Donald Trump responsible. No, he is partially responsible. But the person who ultimately is responsible is none other than the Republican Party and its leadership. I know some of you will say, John, you're beating a dead horse. Quite the contrary. And I will do something today on the Voice of San Francisco. For all of you know, I also do a podcast for the Voice of San Francisco about the decision to turn out the Presidio Trust. That is to say that Donald Trump signed an executive order late last night abolishing the Presidio Trust. The Presidio Trust is one of the most marvelous creations for us who live in San Francisco. But this is simply typical of what this president is doing. And I will call this morning in my podcast for the Voice of San Francisco on the Republican Party in San Francisco and the Republican Party in Marin County to join forces and go to court and try to stop Donald Trump from his attempt to abolish the Presidio Trust. My friends, this is a crisis. It is a crisis on so many different levels. And the ability to stand up and speak out and, yes, to oppose what Donald Trump is doing is essential for the future, not only of the United States of America, not only essential for the future of the world, but also, and I say it clearly, the people of San Francisco had better move quickly in order to protect the Presidio, one of the most popular national parks in the country. Indeed, I believe the most popular national park in the United States. This is a time when Democrats and Republicans must stand up. I know that there are those listening to the sound of my voice who favor a unitary presidency, who favor a president with power. Did you see Donald Trump's depiction of himself as king? We've talked about that. No president is king, and no president should have the power of being able to dictate where we stand. So I'm telling you right now, there must be a resistance by Democrats and Republicans, and in particular, the Republican Party in the United States Senate. This morning, it is entirely probable that the Senate will confirm Kash Patel as director of the FBI. And I'm addressing all of you on this. I give you a homework assignment. Get his book, Government Gangsters. Came out in 2023. Take a look. Read it. See it. We are told that we should judge our public officials by the actions they take. The actions Donald Trump is taking on so many levels, well, it is to me a nightmare to see what he is doing taking place. I urge you, stand up and resist. And the way to do it is by calling the Republican and Democratic parties here in San Francisco and anywhere you're listening to me, and just say no. They have to stand up. Republicans have to stand up, along with Democrats. I think that is the formula that we must use as we deal with a man who believes he is king. This is the United States of America. We don't have a king. And as for the Congress, let the Republicans stand up. And as for all of us, let us stand up too. We have no choice if we want to preserve the democracy that we have. That leads me to the last point. Joe Biden said this was a struggle for democracy. Joe Biden was right. He was correct. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. And, of course, you can interact with me on Facebook on LinkedIn. You can email me. And many of you simply pick up the phone and call me, and I don't mind at all. And I want to say a special thanks to Gogo Zoger, who is the producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. And to all of you, I will be back tomorrow, right here. This is John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World. See you tomorrow.